Yes, I remember Waitangi Day just being, maybe I've got this wrong, but I remember it being the day, you know? But now, good God, it's a week, isn't it? So, yeah, it's a week. Monday, Tuesday, today, and Wednesday. Maybe it's always been a week. But it's a odd thing. I think a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, see Waitangi Day as a day for Maori rather than for non-Maori in this country. Which sort of asks the question, do we need a day in which all New Zealand, well, I suppose it's Anzac Day, but then if I was a recent migrant from South Africa or Asia or China or the Philippines or India, would I be thinking Anzac Day was the national day? No. Do we need a national day? Um, Waitangi Day can be blamed actually on Rob Muldoon, another former National Party Prime Minister, because Norman Kirk decided to call Waitangi Day, as it was then known, New Zealand Day. So this is when Norman Kirk became Prime Minister and a Labour government were elected in 1972. And the reason he called it New Zealand Day was because he wanted it to be for all New Zealanders and celebrate all cultures, which is all right. But Rob Muldoon made it a bit of an election plan. He said, no, I'm going to go back and call it Waitangi Day. And so there you go. But joining us, I hope, hello, Helmut, how are you? Is Helmut Modlik. Where are you? Are you at Waitangi or not?
Now, back home, I've been there. I was there the last few days and took care of the business, and I thought I'd leave the theatre for the whānau and the politicians.
Well, the theatre's going on right now, and you expect more theatre tomorrow as well?
Undoubtedly.
Listen, most New Zealanders, and I was just saying this before, Helmut, regard Waitangi Day as a sleep-in, and have really got sort of, well, over the antics of theatre that we both describe. Is there any chance they'll ever get back to being a respectful hearing of both sides, do you think?
Well, we were in a pretty good place until the coalition decided to come along and play with it all again. I mean, I know that the previous government pushed perhaps faster than some were comfortable with, slower than others. And I mean, I still see this as being a transition period of us finally growing up as a nation to a point where we're not vexed by it. I truly think that our younger generation, so probably 40 and under, have a very, very different opinion than certainly our grey hair, no hair brigade. No, I still think it has been a transition, frankly, Michael.
Well, yeah, that's what scares me, just quietly, being on the other side of that particular argument. But put all that to one side. We'll discuss that on another day. The position of David Seymour actually going there, he's given his speech. It's been interrupted, as you would expect, and his mic was turned off at one stage, taken away from him completely, in actual fact. Does he get some respect for at least turning up?
That's for darn real. I mean, boy, you got to give credit where credit's due. Michael's fortitude is that's pretty thick skin. I don't think anybody can fault him for being willing to turn up and say what he's got to say. The main challenge for those who don't like his message is that he doesn't really listen, so people find that an unedifying experience, where people are just talking at each other, and so that's what I think is what gives rise to a lot of the grumpiness.
Well, I mean, listening's a two-way street, though, Helmut. So one might argue
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, I've put in more effort than most to listen to Michael and to David and to talk with them. We've met many times in private, and I do find him a genuine and engaging young fellow. But he does have a particular inclination and a view that is resistant to engaging with with others in a genuine way. I mean, he's obviously really ideologically stable in his way he sees much of the world, and anyone that's outside that frame, from my experience, is not amenable to genuine engagement with those. I mean, that's politics, right? Politics is about rhetoric, and that's generally what you get.
Well, I mean, I think you could make the same criticism from just about everybody, possibly except Christopher Luxon and Chris Hipkins, because they're sort of more Catholic, if you like. But whether it's Winston Peters, David Seymour, the Greens, or Rari Waititi, you've got to mark out your area, don't you, and say that's where I belong.
Quite. Yeah, quite. In fact, that was a bit of an education, or more of a reminder for me over the last year as I listened to politicians across the spectrum. I was in the House a few times, including in some of the big debates, and I was just reminded that what's called debate in the House is not debate at all.
No.
They just, it's rhetoric, it's obfuscation, it's theatre. Okay, so that belongs to the House. We just forget the game that we're exposed to out here in the community, I think.
Now, Helmut, sorry, I didn't introduce you properly, of course. You're the Chief Executive of... Now, the Runanga is Ngāti Toa, or the iwi is Ngāti Toa, yeah?
Yep, the iwi is Ngāti Toa. So it's Te Runanga Tō Rangatira, that's our formal name, but yeah, Ngāti Toa, yep.
All right. And obviously, because of your position in Wellington, you are ideally placed, and have been for a long time, to have those sorts of competitions with politicians of all stripes. I'm interested, and I started off today by introducing what Te Pāti Māori said. They have a red line. I don't know if you've read that, that they yesterday at Waitangi announced that they had a bottom line, that they wouldn't enter into coalition unless... they agreed to essentially a parliamentary commissioner for Te Tiriti o Waitangi with the particular powers that they defined. Is that realistic in your view?
It's an interesting idea, a way of coming at what, from my perspective, is essentially a constitutional issue. David, I think, somewhat disingenuously framed that as cutting across the uninhibited sovereignty of Parliament to make laws, etc. But of course, constitutions are supposed to do that to some degree. And anyway, back to the point, it is an innovation. I hadn't personally heard or thought about that. Apparently, it was previously serviced by them. I missed it. In terms of how realistic it is, the devil will be in the detail.
I think you can, if you take the rhetoric of the party leaders from Te Pāti Māori, they said Debbie Ngārewa Paka, the Treaty Principles Bill, would never been allowed to get off the ground if that commissioner was there. So that is pretty clear interference with democracy, I would have thought, just quietly, Helmut. And Rawiri Waititi said...
Can I pull that thread? Because that's what constitutional mechanisms are for.
But it doesn't stop you. Yeah, but that's the inhibiting parliamentary representative debate. You get to the party and you say, no, you can't even introduce that bill into Parliament because the parliamentary commissioner says no. That's wrong, isn't it?
Well, just to be clear what I'm saying, democracy is a general idea of majority rule, and there are a variety of versions of that around the world to mitigate some of the logical challenges of that. For example, the majority of the tyranny of the majority. And so, you come up with second houses.
Well, do you either believe in democracy or you don't, Helmut? You sound like you don't.
You do. We do. It's the best thing we've encountered so far. Now, the point I'm making is a refined one, really. It's just the observation that I think it's a valid conversation to have about what's the best way for us to strengthen our democracy and from a constitutional basis. This is an idea, okay? Well, let's see what the detail is and see if it stacks up and does strengthen our democracy or undermines it.